Hi class, I'm going to be covering the deliverables for week 2, where again we're in the content area. We're actually in week 2. We're going to go to lesson 3, and we're going to actually bring up what's expected. And as we go through here, oh, by the way, just the book reading and all this kind of stuff, consider this secondary kinds of information in terms of textbook reading. A big part of your instruction is going to be coming through my video tutorials. So in terms of discernment, these are research manuals, essentially just-in-time kind of learning if you want to go here for some additional kinds of support. Okay, so in other words, I don't want you to necessarily have to read all of this before you begin your homework for the week. Okay, come right down here to your learning activities and then orient yourself and then kind of work backwards from there. So we have the primary and secondary sources that you're going to need to put together by midnight Sunday. Post 4 references. And here it's talking about 4 sources. 2 must be annotated. 1 should be primary. 1 should be secondary. Honestly, guys, at least 4 should be primary. I'm not going to count you down if you have it listed just like it is here, but if you're going for an entrepreneurial thing, you're going to have a lot more than that. This just isn't going to give you enough information, but for your background history, that's a good start. So in other words, yes, I'll accept how it's described actually in here. Okay. All right. So what are annotated references? Well, if you come up here, you got to read these key concepts. So right here we have annotated references, and you'll notice that we actually have this reference, and then this is what yours will look like. It's reference. Notice that the first part is flush with the margin, and then every line after that is indented by 0.5 inches. Then what we have is a description, a summary of what that source is all about. Okay, so that's how you end up doing an annotated reference. So as we come down here a little bit more, then we're going to have your background and history of the problem. So 4 references, 2 primary, 2 secondary sources, and like I said, the primary, I'm counting all that. I put it in the form under week 2, some resources there. There's tons of resources for you to get your primary sources. And in my video, I actually talked about the differences between primary and secondary sources. So by midnight Sunday, you're going to end up submitting the background history of the problem to the Dropbox. And so if we come here to our example in the paper, you're just going to plop that information right in here. That's going to be your research. It's going to have 4 sources to it, and you're not going to be able to talk to anybody just yet, but this is going to be basically your library research as well as your general Google searches. Okay, so great place to also in here is to take notes of things that are missing that you can incorporate actually into your research project. So those sources aren't going to cover everything. They're actually going to be, in actuality, if you're thinking about, say for example, Erica is putting together a food truck and she's got all these questions about, you know, what are the regulatory criteria for putting a food truck together, what's health and safety. I mean, there's just tons of questions that you're going to have, and this is not the place, I repeat, this is not the place in the background history to answer all those questions. That's actually in your research design. So the background history is basically going to talk about maybe trends in the food industry, trends with yours, Erica, is going to be based off of Mexican food and the issue around health concerns with Mexican food. So very general kinds of trending information that would basically say, yeah, you know, based off of these overall trends, 30,000 foot view we're talking about here. Yeah, it seems like this would be a good project to do because of the trends that are happening. So restaurants, the trend that it's a good 75% of those, I don't know what the stats are, you'll find out, of restaurants fail within the first 3 years, whatever that stat is, okay? So a food truck has less overhead, so are those folks basically doing beta testing for a restaurant? You know, things like that. So all the questions that aren't being answered, write those down in this section for right now, because those are going to be the questions that are actually going to be on your survey, or you're going to actually put together a research design around answering those questions. So first of all, it's all the background and history, the research that you did find, and then don't be frustrated around doing research and not being able to find the burning questions on your mind. Write those questions down, and then whatever you can't find in the general 30,000 foot view academically, then we're going to answer those actually in Capstone. We're going to create a research design to answer those specific questions. Okay, I hope that helps. A lot of people get screwed up on this section, background history, and they think that they're actually starting their research. You're not. You're just giving me just a brief overview of a context of being able to say an introduction as why this project is actually a good idea. Okay, and just some overall trending information. Okay, so let's move on. Coming back to this, so the background history of the problem. And then the last thing that we have is the Jesuit reflection. We're going to be talking about Jesuit values in here. And this is, a lot of people will wonder, well, why are we including Jesuit values in business research in Capstone? And this is what makes us different than any other university. And so the first Jesuit reflection is going to be on the value of men and women for others. And we have a little bit of a, Linda Lang talks about it here. I have my own bent around how I understand that to be true. But when we actually take a service mindset in business in particular, or in our workplace, if we have workplace kinds of projects, one of the things that absolutely occurs and makes us better human beings, but also better business people and co-workers by this value. So men and women in service of others. I am not, when you write this description, I want you to reflect on it, what it means to you. There is no external standard. I'm looking for authenticity and reflection. I want this to be a real conversation inside yourself. I don't want this surface kind of conversation. It's in the reflection of these values that makes a difference. It's not that there's a right answer. Okay, so I'm looking for about a page each on these reflections. You certainly can go longer if you feel like it, but just in terms of am I answering it correctly? There is no correct. I want you to actually just kind of spend some time internally and saying, why does that matter? Okay, now let me give you an example. So say, for example, we go back to the food truck idea, and Erica ends up exploring men and women for others. Well, how does that apply to a small business? Well, of course it applies to a small business, because we want to cater to the needs emotionally and intellectually to our different kinds of personas and really understand what they need and what they want, and we want to hear about that, and that makes us more successful as a business. Okay, so it also talks about that where it embodies the spirit of giving and providing service to the poor and the marginalized, etc., etc. And we also take a look at taking a look at how we can contribute to our societies as well. So there's a lot of different levels that you can apply this value. I want you to think about it for yourself, and see what we come up with. Just get some quiet time together, and then see what bubbles up, and write authentically about it. Okay, thanks guys. All right, now we're going to actually go back to lesson 4. And as we go into lesson 4, let's see what they have in this section. Okay. So I forgot to put these in the discussion forum. So I'm giving you, instead of Wednesday night here, I'm giving you until Friday night. So by Friday night, each member will post a brief statement of your goal. It says management problem, but we're really talking about your deliverable, and the research question and problem, and then basically a short discussion of 2 proposed design strategies. Okay, right here. This is huge. This key concept section is absolutely huge. It's talking about, here's the different kinds of research designs that are available for you. Chances are, if you're just going to go out and try to just explore and try to gather some information, maybe a survey. Read these. So exploratory research designs are used when a new idea is being used or proposed, when there's a high degree of uncertainty in possible outcomes, to learn something about the problem situation, or to, they word this all in the negative, but something about what you're trying to create in your deliverable. The exploratory studies do not try to find definitive answers, but serve as a basis to decide more in-depth research. So a lot of business research designs use the exploratory design. And so we have a descriptive design, case study. You can compare different examples, evaluative and comparative. So read through these different kinds of designs, and as you're thinking about those questions that you're trying to resolve in your own mind, which designs, and you could have several different kinds of designs. And if you look at the entrepreneurial example paper, they have multiple designs to answer the questions that they have. Okay, so then the next part here would be by midnight Sunday, post one short, thoughtful response to the question above here, which is short discussion exchange designed to sparken your thinking. Oh, here we go. If the research proposed to be objective, why is it that two researchers can choose different kinds of research designs and arrive at two different outcomes? This is really what needs to be responded to right here. Okay, so why is that the case? So, and then the last part down here, the research strategy section, and we went over that in terms of the paper. Okay, so identify the research design, explain why this particular design, discuss the limitations, explain how the selected design strategy relates to your goal, briefly identify the study population, briefly identify and explain the type of data collection instrument. So by Sunday, that has to be in. All right? Okay, I think I'm finally done. Okay, bye.